Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 17C. A train is turning along a bending of a rail line of radius of 200 meters. Distance between two plates is 1 meter. For turning that running train at velocity of 50.4 km per hour. The last line actually seems to be incomplete. Okay, for turning the running train at velocity of, or maybe there is some problem with the structure of the line. I think what they tried to mean is, if the train wants to take a turn through this, bending rail line, then the maximum velocity that they can actually go up to is 50.4 km per hour. This is the safe limit. If the velocity is above that, then what will happen? Accident might occur. This is one thing. Second, what it might mean is the train is actually running at this speed now. Now, for turning the running train, the line is actually incomplete. That is why the information is not clear. But let us see what we can do. 17C, right? Calculate the difference of height between inner and outer plate of the train line. Okay. We actually know that generally, whenever there is no turning, the road is horizontal. Okay. But whenever there is turning, some banking is needed, right? So the inner side stays at the same position, but the outer end actually we lift it to a certain height, right? So let us say that height here is represented by h, and always the width of the road is represented by d, and the angle here is theta. So they told us to calculate the difference of height between inner and outer plate. Inner plate and outer plate, the height between them, okay, the difference of height between them is h. We need to actually find the h. So if you check h and d, for this theta, we have to find out the opposite. We know the hypotenuse. So oppo by hypo actually gives us sine theta. So oppo by hypo. So h we have to find out. So t we have to cross multiply. So h will be equal to d sine theta. Now in the stem, do we have d and theta? The distance between two plates, that is 1 meter. D is equal to 1 meter. So the value of d is given, but I guess theta is not given. Huh? Then we have to actually calculate the theta. Then we can put the value of theta here. Okay. So how can we calculate the value of theta?
Banking that tan theta is equal to v. Tan theta is equal to v squared divided by r into g.
Right. V squared divided by rg. So here, in order to know the value of theta, we must know the value of v, r, and g. We already know. So v, a velocity is given. I guess we don't have any other choice other than using the value of v as 50.4 km per hour. But remember, you have to convert it into what? Meter per second first, okay? So 50.4 converted to meter per second, I can see after they have converted, it has become 14. So 14 square divided by r. Radius is given as 200, 200 meter into g is 9.8. Okay? So from here, you can easily calculate the value of theta. Tan, if you change the side, it will be tan inverse. Okay? Then put the value of theta here. D you already know, so h will be calculated. Clear how we need to approach?
Yes.
Do I need to show the details calculation? If you tell me to show the details calculation, I can do that too, no problem.
Na sir, parvo.
That's okay. So after that, 20D. 20. A bicycle man of 80 kg carrying a 40 kg cycle. A bicycle man of 80 kg carrying a 40 kg cycle riding a circular plane path.
স্যার এটা এমনিই দিছে ওরা,
কোনটা?
কোনো কাজেই লাগে না যে বাইকের এত কেজি আর নিজেরও এত কেজি।
ওকে, মাস তাইলে লাগবে না আমাদের নাকি? দেখি। Riding a circular plane path with 50 meter radius proceeded slightly angle to the center of the road. Okay. while crossing with 36 km/h velocity. Proceeded slightly angle to the center of the road. I think they meant that he was inclined towards the center of the road. Huh? Acha, how could the road be made at the same speed bicycle man crossed road without angle? Huh? How could the road be made at the same speed bicycle man crossed? আমার মনে হচ্ছে এখানে আসলে অনেকগুলো টাইপিং মিস্টেক আছে বিকজ কোশ্চেনের সেন্টেন্স গুলো কমপ্লিট না মানে স্ট্রাকচারেবল
কেমন জানি আজীব আজীব লাগে শুনতে।
How could the road be made? রোডটা কিভাবে বানানো যাবে at the same speed bicycle man crossed road without angle? ওরা বলেই দিচ্ছে যে উইদাউট অ্যাঙ্গেল। তো যদি কোনো অ্যাঙ্গেল না থাকে তাহলে তো রোডটা হরিজন্টাল ভাবে আনসার তো এখানেই হয়ে যায়। যদি উইদাউট অ্যাঙ্গেল কথাটা না বলতো তাইলে হয়তো বা আমরা কিছু করতে পারতাম যে হাউ কুড দ্য রোড বি মেড, রোডটা কিভাবে বানানো যায় at the same speed bicycle man crossed the road। যদি একই স্পিডে বাইসাইকেল ম্যানটা রোড ক্রস করতে চায় তাইলে আসলে কিভাবে রোডটা বানাতে হবে সেটা, বাট এখানে আমরা বলে দিছি উইদাউট অ্যাঙ্গেল, এখানে একটা কনফিউশন। আচ্ছা যাক, the road should have the banking angle the bicycle required to make। আচ্ছা এখানে বলছে উইদাউট অ্যাঙ্গেল। ও আচ্ছা,
কিন্তু আনস্টেবল অ্যাঙ্গেল দিয়ে
বুঝতে পারছি, একটু থিংক করতে হবে আসলে। এখানে দেখো if the road was horizontal, okay, and then you are taking a turn, then what will happen? The bicyclist, what they do, they get inclined towards the center, right? Okay, generally they are straight, but whenever they are taking a turn and the road is horizontal, they incline a little bit towards the center of the turning, right? So they are saying if the bicyclist doesn't incline at an angle, here they said without an angle, right? They didn't write the question clearly, that is why we are having a hard time to understand it. Anyway, now I think I got this, that let us say the road will have some banking. How much the banking angle of the road needs to be if I do not have to incline at any angle? You understand, without angle, they say this is for the bicyclist, the person who is riding. So if he doesn't have to incline, okay, that means the road has to be inclined a little bit now. Then the bicyclist does not have to incline. This is the case for car, right? We know that the car cannot incline, so we make the road incline. Here also they are saying the bicyclist will not incline, so as a result the road has to incline, and the situation will be something like this figure, okay? So they are saying at what angle the road has to incline. Theta we have to find out. So to find out the theta, there are several information we can use, okay? H and D, if these two are known, then from this equation we can find out. If velocity, radius are known, then using this equation we can find out. So let us see which one is of use. Here I can see that the radius is given 50 meter and the velocity is given 36 km/h. So using this equation, I think we can find out tan theta is equal to b square by rg. What is your opinion on this? Those who solved, kindly express your opinion.
Yes.
We can do it, right? Even though in the PDF they have solved in a different way, they have used this equation, okay, but there they do not know actually the value of x, the value of h. So as we know the value of b and r, we can use this equation and try to find out the exact inclination that is required, okay?
Okay.
So this is 20D. Then someone I guess messaged 21. হ্যাঁ সাদিয়া, তুমি মেসেজ করছিলে 21 ফিগারটা যে এইভাবে ড্র করতে হবে সেটা তুমি বুঝতেছ না নাকি?
জি স্যার।
আচ্ছা, so this figure is actually similar to the figure that we drew on the board while we were discussing banking of the road, okay, if you remember. Now normally in case of banking of the road, what we know, the road cannot be horizontal. Okay. So a car of mass 3 kg was turning through a road of, okay, we will put the values later, but let us you know observe our situation. This is the road for normal situation, which is horizontal, right? But for turning of the road, if banking has to be provided, then the figure will become like this, right? This is the road now, and this is the angle of banking theta, and this is the height difference between the inner plate and the outer plate of the road. Okay, and the d, all these things actually no need to actually represent now. Now what we need to understand is, if there is a body here, okay, so what is going to happen? The weight that will be acting vertically downward, which is W is equal to mg, right? But the reaction force that will be available from the road, it will be perpendicular to the road, right? So this will be the direction of the reaction, correct? And if I extend this one backward, this angle will also be theta. Okay, now this one, this reaction force can be actually divided into two parts. Okay, one in this direction, another sorry, not this one. You have to actually resolve the weight, because here the car, right? So this one we will resolve into two perpendicular components, one in this direction, another one in this direction. Okay, so as you can understand, if this angle is theta, then this is mg, so this one will become actually mg cos theta, and this component will become mg sin theta. Here mg sin theta will be balancing the reaction force that we get from the road, okay? And mg cos theta, this is unbalanced, right? Now this one will actually work or serve as the centripetal force that is required for the car to stay on the road. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So actually it depends on you that এখানে একটা জিনিস কেয়ারফুল থাকতে হবে যে থিটা আসলে কোনটা হবে, because
জি স্যার, এটাই।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বুঝতে পারছি, থিটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি এটা না, এটা হবে এটা। কারণ এটাকে আসলে আমার মাঝে মাঝে চিন্তা করতে একটু প্রবলেম হয়ে যায়, সেটা হচ্ছে দেখো এই যে পারপেন্ডিকুলার ইয়াটা না, এটা কিন্তু রোডটা যখন এই মানে হরিজন্টাল ছিল তখন কিন্তু এটা এদিকে সোজা বরাবর ছিল। যখন তুমি রোডটাকে এভাবে উপরে উঠে দিছো, এটাও কিন্তু এই যে রোডটা যতটুকু যে অ্যাঙ্গেলের উপরে দিক উঠবে, এখন এটা আগে পারপেন্ডিকুলার ছিল না, এটাও কিন্তু পারপেন্ডিকুলার থাকতে হলে ঠিক একই অ্যাঙ্গেলে, এই যে ভার্টিক্যাল থেকে একই অ্যাঙ্গেলে ঘুরে যেতে হবে। তো এই কারণে থিটাটা হবে অ্যাকচুয়ালি এটা। ওকে, তো এই জিনিসটা একটু কেয়ারফুল থাকবে, তাই না? মানে আমাদের এখানে হিসাবটা কিন্তু একটু চেঞ্জ হয়ে যায়, এটা হবে mg sin থিটা আর এটা হয়ে যাবে mg cos থিটা। ওকে, তো একটু কেয়ারফুল থাকবা, চিন্তা করবা যে মানে হরিজন্টাল পজিশনে যখন ছিল রোডটা, তখন এই যে পারপেন্ডিকুলার এটা নাকি এটা, দেখা যাচ্ছে পারপেন্ডিকুলার এটা ছিল, এটা এভাবে ছিল, তাই না? রোড ওঠার সাথে সাথে এটা ওইদিকে ঘুরে গেছে, তো this angle should be theta, right? Okay, should I
Okay, sir.
figure again from the beginning?
No, I understood.
Okay, আচ্ছা 25d এর কি যেন একটা বোঝানো বলতেছো, রেজাল্টেন্ট 25d। A performer in a circus is revolving an object 200 times in 2 minutes over his head in a vertical plane with a 90 cm long string. Suddenly, 1/3 portion of the object is detached. As a result, without being frightened, the performer
The resultant এটা maybe 23 তে 23C। স্যার একটা বডি ওরা উপর থেকে নিচে ফেলাইছে, তো অ্যাক্সিলারেশন ডাইরেক্ট জি ধরতে পারতাম, তো ওরা কেন এখানে রেজাল্টেন্ট অ্যাক্সিলারেশন দিয়ে করছে, মানে কেন?
that might be the case. এই ধরনের সিচুয়েশন আসলে কোথায় আসে আমি তোমাকে বলি, যে মনে করো তুমি লিফটের মধ্যে আছো। If the lift is
Yes,
stationary, then if you just leave the ball, it will fall under the acceleration of gravity, acceleration due to gravity. But when the
yes,
lift is moving, that time the acceleration due to gravity will be changed. Actually acceleration due to gravity, that will be g only, but the resultant acceleration will be something. The acceleration of the lift you need to add or subtract depending on the direction of the lift is going. Okay, 23 number.
yeah, 23C.
23 A coconut of 2 kg was falling straight downward from the tree. এটাতে এটা রেজাল্টেন্ট অ্যাক্সেলারেশন, এটা তো আবার ডিফারেন্ট। ওকে, আমি ভাবছিলাম যে লিফটের কতগুলো আছে ওগুলো। যাই হোক, 23 নাম্বার। A coconut of 2 kg was
লিস্টেরও একটা দেখছিলাম, বাট এখন পাইতেছি না।
আচ্ছা আমরা দেখব, অসুবিধা নেই। A coconut of 2 kg was falling straight downward from the tree of 11-meter height. While falling, it experienced 2.6 Newton resistive force from the air. Definitely there will be a resultant force. Why there will be a resultant acceleration? খেয়াল করো, if the only force acting on this one is the force of gravity, then the acceleration will be g is equal to 9.8 meter per second square, right? But if some other force is also working on this, definitely this acceleration will be changed. How? If the force is acting in the downward direction, now the acceleration will increase. Why the acceleration will increase? Previously only the force of gravity was working, now another force is also assisting that force. So as the force has increased, the acceleration will also increase. We know this, right? F equal to ma, right? If you increase the force, acceleration will also increase. Now let us say a resistive force is acting. That means one force of gravity is acting in the downward direction and another force is trying to resist the fall. Then as a result, what will happen? The acceleration will be decreased because the resultant force has decreased, right? If the force of gravity that is acting in the downward direction, let us say it is 10 Newton, and the resistive force that is acting in the upward direction is 5 Newton. So the resultant will be 10 minus 5, 5 Newton. So the acceleration that will be created now is for that resultant 5 Newton. The acceleration will not be equal to 9.8 anymore. Remember, whenever the body is falling under the influence of force of gravity only, no other force is acting, that time our acceleration is 9.8. But if some other force is also acting, definitely this acceleration will be affected. Do you understand my point?
Yes.
Okay, so we actually write this equation that summation of f is equal to ma. Okay, and this a is the resultant acceleration. How can we get this? Let us say two forces are acting, f1 plus f2 is equal to ma. Now here you have to choose which direction you are considering positive. If you say the downward direction you are considering positive, then whatever the force that is acting in the downward direction will be positive, and whatever the force of there acting in the upward direction will be considered as negative. So okay, 2.6 Newton of resistive force. Now the first force, that is the force of gravity, that is actually W, the weight, right? So this is W, and we can find it out by mg. Okay, so how mg? 2 into 9.6, so 2 into 9.8. This is the force of gravity that is acting in the downward direction, so I consider the downward direction to be positive. Now a resistive force is acting. Definitely the resistive force always acts in the opposite direction of motion. The body is falling down, the opposite direction of this motion is in the upward direction. So this force of 2.6 Newton, definitely we have to write it minus 2.6, right? So as a result, what will happen? The resultant force will be decreased, and there will be a new acceleration which will not be equal to 9.8 anymore. Understood?
Yes.
Acha. So remember this one. If the only acting force is force of gravity, acceleration due to gravity is g. But if there are some other forces involved, then what will happen? G, the acceleration will not be g anymore. Okay, 9.8, it will not be like that. It will be changed. Acha. 16D. Somebody asked me 16D. Did I discuss about 16D already? No.
স্যার 16 নাম্বারটাই সে লিফটের ম্যাথটা
16 নাম্বারটাই লিফট ম্যাথটা ওকে তাহলে পাইছি a lift is going downward with the acceleration 2.5 see the lift is already going down okay and the acceleration due to gravity acts in the downward direction 9.8 so both are acting in the same direction as a result both the acceleration will be added 9.8 plus 2.5 okay a person is staying at the lift and the ball of mass 0.55 kg is held on his hand at 2 meter height from the floor. Okay. Then he throws the ball with the velocity of 1.5 meter per second to the upward direction and screw is released from the top of the lift at the same time. The distance between the floor and the top, that is the height of the lift, is 2.7. Both the ball and the screw touch the floor of the lift. Definitely, they both will fall and touch the floor of the lift. Okay. Oh, this is not Notre Dame College, my college. I graduated from this. Okay. So, E, which one will touch the ground first? Analyze mathematically. Ball and screw both will touch the floor, but which one will touch first? So, we need to calculate actually the time T for both of them, right? And the one who will have less value of T, he will have touched the floor in shorter amount of time. Do you understand my point?
Yes, sir.
ওকে তারিক জিজ্ঞেস করছিল এটা মনে হয় তো তারিক এখানে আমাদের টি টা ক্যালকুলেট করতে হবে সো টি কি ক্যালকুলেট করতে পারবা নাকি টি এর ক্যালকুলেশনে কোনো ডাউট আছে
স্যার ক্যালকুলেশনেই ডাউট আছে
আচ্ছা কোনটা বলো এখানে আমি তো দেখতেছি ওরা ওই যে s ut plus half at স্কয়ার এই ফর্মুলা অ্যাপ্লাই করছে তাই না
জি স্যার
তো যেটা ফলিং বডির জন্য হয়ে যায় h ut plus half gt স্কয়ার তো প্রথমে ওরা অ্যাপ্লাই করছে কিসের জন্য দা বলের জন্য আচ্ছা এখানে কি সমস্যা বলো তো দেখি
তারা অ্যাক্সেলারেশন অফ লিফট করছে বাট আমাদের তো বলের অ্যাক্সেলারেশন বের করা দরকার
কিসের অ্যাক্সেলারেশন
তারা লিফটের অ্যাক্সেলারেশন ইউজ করছে
lift acceleration from the floor okay is equal to minus ut plus half g prime t square না এখানে তো ওরা লিফটেরটা কোথায় ইউজ করলো
12.3 মিটার পার সেকেন্ড স্কয়ার
12.3 এটা তো হচ্ছে 9.8 plus 2.5
প্লাস 2.5
resultant acceleration এর ভ্যালু হবে 9.8 plus 2.5 না 12.3 ওকে তো এখানে এই যে এই জি এর ভ্যালু আমরা এটা বসাবো 12.3 মিটার পার মানে এ আর কি তো এটাতেই তোমার কনফিউশন যে ওরা কেন 12.3 বসালো
জি স্যার
তো এখানে তো বুঝাই যাচ্ছে যে মানে এখন বুঝতে পারছো কেন কারণ হচ্ছে the lift is going in the downward direction if the lift is going in the upward direction then we will subtract then the screw is falling from 2.7 meter height. For that also we applied the same formula. বাট এখানে ওরা একটা জিনিস ভুল বসাইছে আমার মনে হচ্ছে, সেটা হচ্ছে এই যে h equal to minus ut plus half g prime t square, এটার পরের লাইনে ওরা লিখছে a is equal to, a কোথা থেকে আসবে? আচ্ছা তাই হোক, এটা একটু আমরা করে দেখি না। তো এখানে h ও আছে গ্রাউন্ডের থেকে 2 মিটার হাইটে, তাই না? তার মানে ওকে অ্যাকচুয়ালি কভার করতে হবে এই 2 মিটার ডিসটেন্স। সো 2 is equal to initial velocity, it was thrown in the upward direction, so the initial velocity will be minus 1.5. Why it will be minus 1.5? Because we are considering the downward direction to be positive, that is why the g is positive. Okay, so minus 1.5 t plus half of, we already saw that the value of g prime, it will be 12.3 t square. So if I change the side of this 2 and bring it over there, then what will happen? 12.3 divided by 2, 6.15. 6.15 t square minus 1.5 t minus 2. This should be our equation, right? 6.15 t square minus 1.5 t minus 2.5 they have written. I think they have made a mistake here. Right? They have made a mistake here. It will be 2, not 2.5, because it was at 2 meter height from the ground. Right or wrong? 2 meter height from the floor of the lift. Okay? So kindly solve this equation. Do you know how to solve it using the calculator?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so solve it using the calculator, and I think one answer will come positive, another value will come negative. So we have to ignore the negative one. Okay, we have to consider the positive value of time, because time can never be negative. So this is the case for the ball. About the screw, it was left from the top of the lift, which is at 2.7 meter height from the ground. So what will happen? The initial velocity of this one will be considered 0, because it was at rest, then we released it, it started falling down, right? So here, if I apply the same formula for screw, the initial velocity will be 0, so whole ut will be 0. Only half gt square will be there. So the distance that it has to cover is 2.7, and this one will be 0, and g prime, it is same as 12.3 here. So the only unknown is t square. Okay, so from that, can you find the t square? Can you find the value of t? Not t square, we need to find the value of t.
Yes.
You can see that they have found out the time to be 0.663 seconds. And in case of the screw, the ball, it is 0.771. So we can see that the screw is taking less amount of time to touch the floor, so the screw will come to the ground first. Understood?
Yes.
Yes.
যদি দরকার মনে হয় আমাকে বলো, আমি স্ক্রুর ক্যালকুলেশনটাও দেখাবো, অসুবিধা নেই। এটা অবশ্য বুঝছো না? ওকে, ফাইন। আচ্ছা, আর কোনটা যেন ছিল?
24D.
24D, right? Someone said 24D. Okay, 24, a thin uniform rod of mass 1.75 kg. Acha. Leading up to this, we need to draw a thin uniform rod so that we can actually write all the given information in that figure. Thin uniform rod. Okay.
স্যার শেষ হওয়ার আগে বলে দেন কালকে হোমওয়ার্ক।
শেষ নাকি? ও, অলমোস্ট শেষ। আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, অসুবিধা নেই। 24 টা না তাহলে কালকে ডিসকাস করলাম। তো তোমরা কি করবা? আর কত পর্যন্ত জানি ছিল এই চ্যাপ্টারে ক্রিয়েটিভ? 32
32
42
yes 32
32। তাইলে তো ওকে, 26 থেকে 32 পর্যন্ত নেক্সট দিনের হোমওয়ার্ক। আজকে তো 25 পর্যন্ত করছো, তাই না?
yes
তাহলে 32 পর্যন্ত নেক্সট দিনের হোমওয়ার্ক। নেক্সট দিন ইনশাআল্লাহ এই চ্যাপ্টার শেষ, তারপর আমরা পরের দিন কি শুরু করব? এই
ওয়ার্ক
ওয়ার্ক
পাওয়ার
পাওয়ার
এনার্জি।
এনার্জি। ওকে, ঠিক আছে তাহলে ভালো থাকো ইনশাআল্লাহ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম রাহমাতুল্লাহ ওয়া বারাকাতুহু। And remind me that I did not finish discussing about 24D. I have to discuss this at the beginning of the next class.